Good morning, good morning. Welcome to another show of our Voices of the Festival. I am today in Bonita Springs, and Bonita, making honor to its name. It's very pretty. Bonita in Spanish means beautiful. And you can see I'm in a little lanai here for the river view. Very charming. Yeah. Some people kayaking there. So it's really nice. Hi everyone, and let me invite Heather. I don't see her. I don't see them. Where's Heather? Oh, here we go. Heather, you probably see me. There you are. It
Good morning.
always takes a little second to connect, but
Hi.
interesting. We just talk on the phone, and it was the other way around. It's like a mirror now.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, yeah. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. I'm here in sunny Florida. I'm outside. I'm wearing a jacket just for you guys, but I don't need a jacket. It's really warm, but it's a linen jacket, so it should be okay. And where are you now?
I'm in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, New York, and it is not quite as beautiful of a day, but I am surrounded by my plants, so we can just pretend I'm also in Bonita Springs,
Yeah,
Brooklyn.
exactly. All this greenery is beautiful, and you have all that greenery. And I heard that. I mean, I was looking at your window, and it was beautiful. I mean, certainly the architecture of that building is gorgeous. I can see the big windows, but also the view. And you was mentioning something about your block.
Yes. This seems ridiculous to be telling you with the background that you have, but in Brooklyn, my block has won the greenest block in Brooklyn many so many times that we can't compete anymore. So
Oh wow!
I know.
How is that? What is the feature that makes it the greenest block
Everyone
in Brooklyn?
puts plants out. So there's like a real push to put plants out on the stoops. But then there's a woman called Miss Althea who lives down the block, and she used to work in the fashion industry. She's also like a designer and an artist, and she's made like a planter that's like a woman's face, and then a fern that's growing out of it is like an afro. Like she's a, a genius and makes beautiful things. And so her part of the block is also, I mean, there are lights in the trees and murals, and there was a planter made out of an old bike wheel with spokes on it. It's an incredibly creative block. There's a violinist who lives across the street. A composer I've worked with lives a couple doors down. It's a wonderful place to live.
Who is the composer?
Tamar Kali, actually
Okay.
from South Carolina. We met at the Spoleto Festival,
Okay.
and I said, "Oh, I live in Brooklyn. Oh, I live in Brooklyn too. Oh, I live on these cross streets. Oh, I live on these cross streets." And then we realized we're both from the Low Country in South Carolina, and I got to work with Tamar Kali in a Beth Morrison project in the fall. It's crazy.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a great project.
Small New York world.
Yes, excellent. And so you're from, you say, South Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
North South Carolina. Where in South Carolina?
I grew up all over, moved a lot, but Newberry, South Carolina, if anyone has ever heard of that. I know that Danny Cohen knows where Newberry, South Carolina is. And I was a little kid there, and then Charleston is where I went to school through elementary through high school, and spent summers either in Greenville or Spartanburg or Greer, if anyone knows where Greer, South Carolina is.
Well, no, I don't know any of them, but you know, they're not far from Savannah, so
Very,
I'm sure you feel home in Savannah.
yes, it makes my blood pressure go down, makes my heart rate go down to be in Savannah, to be like near the swamps, like the tropical sort of marshy areas feel very, very homey to me.
Good, good. Yeah, that is. I mean, coming. When did you leave South Carolina?
For college, so when I was 18, I went
Okay.
to choir college in Princeton, New Jersey, and I was so green. I didn't know anything about anything. I was like, I need to get out of the South. I need to go see the rest of the world. And I went to Princeton, New Jersey, which is basically identical to Charleston, South Carolina, except it's just in the north. But everybody dresses the same. You know, it's still incredibly like preppy and small town vibes, and um, not quite all that different, really. And then I moved to New York, which obviously is its own thing.
Oh, but that was a good stepping process. Let's put it that way, because Princeton, it may be. I mean, it's a campus, so it's a small town feeling, but it's such a psychologically it's a big town because it's Princeton is there, so it has a such a, yeah, world class standing. So it's quite a bit of a it's a
Definitely.
different feeling, but it's very comfortable. And as you say, as you know, it's right there from New York, so it almost feels like a neighborhood of New York, over like
It's
a
true. It's
suburb. So
straight to New York, I would have been very overwhelmed. But going to Princeton and then going to Westminster, I got to perform in Carnegie Hall and at the Kimmel Center, and then kind of come home to a smaller town in Princeton. So it was really a perfect little step on my way to New York for sure.
okay, how do you started with music?
I have musical parents, and so ever since I was a kid, I am also an only child, so I would be like at the rehearsals all the time. I would often be like the only kid around, watching rehearsal, uh, pretending to participate in the rehearsal, by
What
like
kind of musicians are they?
my dad. They're both singers, and my dad has is a conductor as well, choral conductor. Also works at Converse College and conducts the operas there. So surrounded by opera from very, very young, and musicals as well. Like I remember, West Side Story was kind of one of my earliest memories of being part of a show process, because my dad was conducting it in Charleston. And oh my gosh, I was obsessed. I was obsessed with everyone in the show, with the music, with being around it. And I definitely like had the brain of an adult as a small child. It was just like, I'm in this show as well. We're all here for rehearsal, obviously.
How old were you?
That was probably when I was 5.
Oh,
And
very.
um, previous to that, I would go to, concerts and recitals. And I had my own piano recitals too. And then I started performing basically through church choir. That was like when I think also when I was 5. Um, Once we moved to Charleston, there were just a lot more art opportunities and performance opportunities. Um, Although the Newberry Opera House is doing very well now, but it was, in a state of disrepair when I lived in Newberry. But
Okay.
yeah, to Charleston, I took piano lessons. I was in the church choir. I um, just loved listening to music and being at performances. I was in ballet, so I was kind of surrounded by classical music and choral music, and that's kind of where I got started.
Great. And so you started as a pianist, and then you start voice, or you were doing everything because you were doing chorus.
Kind of, probably in terms of being a soloist at anything, I started with piano, and choir was probably around the same time. I really didn't become a solo singer until college, even. I set out to teach a high school choir. I was going to follow in my dad's footsteps and be a conductor and be a teacher. And um, I went to Westminster Choir College for music education, which is an incredible degree. To get there, very rigorous, very intense. And I'm happy that I did it. But then I taught for 3 years and was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. Like, this is not what I was expecting at all. Obviously, a conservatory is a really optimistic place, and you have all of these ideas about what teaching will be, and it was not that for me. And I found that what I wanted to be doing was like actively making music. And when you're a teacher, you're facilitating other people making music. And when you're a conductor, as as you experience, like you are facilitating music in the room, and like it's not being a soloist. It's not the same feeling. And I made that realization after teaching for a while and said, okay, well, I still love teaching. I love working with young people. I think that that will always be an option for me. Let's see about getting a degree in voice performance. Just see how, if I can even get into a school, see if that is an option that's available to me. And thankfully it was. And I ended up going to Mannes School of Music in New York, which is how I moved here.
So you finished your undergrad and you taught for 3 years, and then you did your master's in voice. Yeah, I totally get what you mean about the facilitator, but I had the same feeling when I was studying conducting and I was doing symphonic conducting as a conductor. So I always felt like I wasn't doing the music. I said, no, I want to make music. I don't want to. I'm just there and I say I'm not doing anything. But then, and it also felt like when symphonic is that they kind of can do it without me. It's very little my input in it. I mean, it is important, but it wasn't as essential. Only when it came as an opera conductor, is I felt like that my input was there and that I was shaping the music the way I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was essential. I mean, you can really barely you can do operas without a conductor. There's very few that you can. So it felt like, okay, so then I need it, and my input it's essential to the performance. And I started playing with it. I mean, probably now I should, whenever I do symphonic, I feel more involved with it, so it's a little different. But I had the same feeling of, wait a minute, I want to be doing music, so I continue with my solo piano, not so much the conducting first.
Yeah, right. Which it makes sense, how every conductor would have a primary instrument. You can't really be a conductor without being a musician, which would mean you need an instrument. But yeah, it's a wild feeling to be making music, but like it's not physically coming from your body.
Right. There's nothing direct.
Yeah.
Just like, and how was your? I mean, but when you were in undergrad, you sang solos, right? I mean, you sang. Obviously.
I did. I mostly, like, I didn't do any opera. There was not undergrad opera at Westminster at the time. I think there is now. And I sang a few like step out solos, like and sang solos in my composer friends' recitals and things like that. But it was not, I really was like, okay, my solo days are behind me. I had done musical theater, and that in those I had done solos like in high school. But I really thought once I got to Westminster, and this thinking is so funny looking back, I really thought, if I'm going to be a choir conductor, like my performing days are behind me. It's time to go off into the world, and I can't do silly things like singing anymore. So really not great. I had to take a little bit of time to like look at my feelings about singing. But yeah, I think also one of the reasons that I love being at Savannah Voice Festival is, as you know, maybe like in the South, there's not a huge network of classical music where and just in the culture, it's not, it's maybe more so in Georgia, definitely not as much in South Carolina, where like you can be a professional, full-time professional singer. That's not part of the culture. It's not really something that I was taught that I could aspire to do. It's definitely something that was fostered, and people, you know, I went to an amazing art school, like Magnet Art School, Charleston County School of the Arts, and uh, got an amazing arts education. But even so, it was like in order to become a teacher or in order to become an arts administrator. And I really had to unlearn sort of that culture of like, oh no, but being a performer like isn't a real job. And thankfully, it is. I don't think that anymore. And in fact, it is my job, which is great.
Right. And how was your New York experience as a student, as a master's in voice?
Oh, a steep learning curve. Again, like even though I had lived in New Jersey, I still was so naive looking back. So started my master's when I was 25, and it was amazing, like really amazing to be surrounded by so many professors and musicians who had seen the opera world. And that's really what I knew that I needed to like catch up on, was like opera repertoire, just repertoire in general. I knew tons of choral repertoire from conducting and from singing at Westminster, but I really didn't know that much about opera, how to, definitely not how to sing opera, and how to sing as a soloist, like just singing with vibrato rather than straight tone, you know. And I had a really wonderful voice teacher in the in between of undergrad and grad school, who kind of lit the fire of being interested and passionate about opera, and you know, made me listen to all of the great singers and kind of found the voice inside me to that made me believe that I could do it. But yeah, then grad school, the first year, I was kind of like looking around being like, wow, everyone here knows exactly what they're doing, which of course was not the case. It was a whole bunch of like early 20s kids in New York. None of us knew what we were doing. But and by the second year, I felt like, okay, maybe I know what I'm doing. In the spring of my first year, I actually sang Dido and Aeneas, and it kind of grounded me and made me think, okay, I know what music is. At least I've been surrounded by music since I was a young kid, and Purcell kind of bridged that gap. And like in high school, we had sung excerpts from Dido and Aeneas, so it kind of, I had an in with it. I didn't feel like such an outsider. And I sang that in the spring, and then the next year I was in Così, like the main stage production at the school. And I know that external validation should not be so important, but by getting into that show, I was like, oh, okay, I can do it, which like also has nothing to do with anyone's career, whether or not they get into the shows in grad school, of course.
Right.
But it
No. I always say nothing makes it or breaks it. But it is a fact that, I mean, we're performers, and secretly or not secretly, we want to communicate with an audience, and we want to be liked by the audience. We want to show what we do, and like any artist, we put our creation out there and in hope that they will like it. Even art forms that are not pretty, that they are searching for a common spirit that will understand that communication. So call it validation, or call it communication, or call it approval, or call it connection. It is any art form, really. Any art form is a form of communication, and a communication is not a one-way process. We have to have the other person. Could be in front of us, like in a performer, or could be in front of our work 1,000 years after, like a composer, a painter, or I don't know, stone, a handstone from, you know, from prehistoric time. There's always a communication scent out there. So we need that response. And this, you know, for performance, we're lucky that we have it immediately.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, being cast in a show, it is a form of communication also. They say, okay, yes, you know, you understand this language, you understand, you have the material to perform this piece, and that's it. And we need that validation. As you know, I mean, it's just, you just inspire me to talk about things. But as you know, in our work, we just, and it happened in your career, and it happened in my career. You just do things, and some things work, and some other things don't work, or some things we like, and some other things we don't like. We just talk about the conducting part, and it's not that. So, you know, we start doing something, and that doesn't quite work, so we do something else, and then that doesn't quite work, and you just go finding what you like. And you know, I'm very happy how my career is going, but I always say I'm a failed pianist. If you want, in terms of being soloist and playing piano concertos,
Right.
that I fail. So in a way, it's, and I'm not ashamed of saying it's not. I'm joking. It's not a fail. It's that it's not my thing. It's not my strength. It's not what I enjoy. So I choose not to do it anymore. But it is a process. So you start doing conducting, quiet conducting, or teaching, and say, man, there's something missing there, and I want to do something else. And then you try singing, and you got approval in a way, and in a way we need approval. And no one's hired us. It's I mean, it just doesn't work. It's we, you know, we cannot just live in the practice room. It's just not quite how it works. So.
Right. And the part of my reframing things too was in college, as I said, it was a pretty intense degree. And so the culture of the school was really like, everybody's going to be good. Everybody's going to, you know, maybe I'm blaming the school. My outlook was, I'm going to be good at school. And like, I think a lot of my passion and drive to be a good conductor and to be a good teacher was like, I want to be good at this degree. And yeah, and it was scary to realize that didn't bring me as much joy as I thought it would, and also scary to switch to singing, which is so vulnerable and so like for me at the time felt like kind of a bigger risk. The competition to be a singer as opposed to the competition to be a teacher, you know, and like the costs to break into, you know, classical singing and things like that. It felt like a bigger risk. It has felt like a bigger reward to me too, for sure.
Definitely. And going back to and what you were saying about that you got the acceptance of the and approval. It is, as a singer, it's very hard. First of all, the level of rejection is very high because unfortunately there's a lot of offer and little demand, and there's a lot of singers for little places to perform. So unfortunately there's a lot of cases in which we're not being chosen, but it's related to our instruments, and the voice is very personal. So it's not just your music making; it is your instrument. Mm-hmm. As if you're an instrumentalist and you're playing piano, is that you are not a good pianist or not so good pianist, or better, some other is a better pianist than you. But in singing, it's that not only they like the other singer better, and it's very hard to separate. They like that voice and that singing better as that person better. Mm-hmm. Because the instrument is part of your body, and so it is tough. But it's a reality we need to live with, and it's hard. But I mean, anyone can agree that not everyone can be singing, unfortunately. So,
Sure. Yeah, I've always been fascinated with like, and this was the same for undergrad too. Like, I've always wanted to be surrounded by people who I feel inspired by and challenged by. And like, knew that I wanted to move to New York for that reason too, to just see like, okay, what is quote the best of the best? Let me see what the market is like. I was even early on, I was pretty realistic in my like, okay, I know that this isn't what I've been training to do since I was 16 or anything, but I want to go to where um, people say the best singers are and surround myself with that and learn and um, even if I wasn't getting the opportunities that I wanted immediately, I felt like I was still learning because I saw that the people who did, okay, not that it necessarily makes sense, but like gathering information about like, okay, this person is successful in this way, this person is successful in this way. What kind of a career do I want to have? Well, it's not really either one, but I can pick, I can cherry pick like, oh, I really respect the way that this artist is doing this. I really respect the way that this artist is doing this. Maybe I can sort of DIY a path for myself.
and how do you build that? I mean, because you find success, and
Yeah, well, I have been very lucky to draw from my choral background, and that was a real safety net for me when I was first out of grad school. I did probably a year and a half of young artist programs like back to back to back, and learned a ton, and also got very tired and like um, kind of pivoted into a more freelance lifestyle rather than moving around everywhere. I knew I wanted to live in New York. I knew I wanted to be based in New York. And so I kind of pivoted to being more freelance. And thankfully, I could audition for professional choral ensembles. I had really strong sight reading already from going to choir college and from having that like scared into me. Can sight read very well under pressure, and have been able to sing with really amazing ensembles, which is such a funny time travel sort of thing. Like singing the same pieces that I maybe sang in high school or in college, but being so much later in life with different people, with different colleagues. I don't know. I have loved like kind of reliving those experiences and observing the ways that I've changed and observing the ways the music stays the same, the audiences are the same or they're different. That has been very cool.
wow, yeah, and and after your masters, what happened?
Yeah. Let's see. I I got 2 seasons of like being a professional musician in before the pandemic happened. So, not very long. I was kind of making my way doing a mix of young artists, like freelance New York stuff, and then, temping in New York when I needed to, nannying or something. And then the pandemic hit, and I had the wildest we all had the wildest experience, but my relationship to money and to creating completely changed getting unemployment. Thank you, New York State, for having amazing unemployment. And I was able for the first time to just create for the sake of creating. And I wasn't in that mindset that I had been in after grad school of like, oh, I have to make money. Like, I have to pay rent. I have to do whatever it takes. And also, I want a music career. Um, sort of that nervous energy of, just being in your 20s in New York and trying to make ends meet. And the pandemic gave me different anxiety, obviously, but the facet of I have to work to afford things was taken out of it for a few months. And oh my gosh, I felt so free in a way. I felt very trapped in my New York apartment. I did not leave New York the whole time. I didn't have a car. I like biked to Connecticut because I was going so crazy. I did a lot of biking, but I'll just talk about the good parts of the pandemic. We all remember the bad parts. And I had wanted to do a film. I don't remember where I got this idea, but I wanted to do a film version of like classical music. And I was quarantining with my partner, the tenor. So I was like, okay, what can we sing together? Abraham and Isaac, Britain, Abraham and Isaac. And we we had gotten recording equipment through a different project that he was doing. So we had like a nice microphone. We recorded it. I reached out to a friend of mine who's a painter in South Carolina who does like live paintings of wedding receptions, and I asked if she would do it for music. So then she got a videographer and went to these beautiful like church ruins in Beaufort, South Carolina, and this whole thing came together, and I had all the time in the world to edit it, and I did, and felt so good about it. And then we used it to raise money for Colin Kaepernick's foundation, and it kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of doing self-produced work, which really isn't a facet of being a classically trained singer. It's kind of like, I like to say, you're kind of more like an athlete than a creator necessarily. You get really good at a craft, and you get really good at like doing a language correctly, doing a style correctly, doing a passage correctly. It's almost like an Olympic sport rather than you creating something new. Of course, you're creating a new performance every time you do it, but this felt like a new level of creation and combining different styles of art. And then I did another film of me singing a Kurt Weill song, and a dancer from Juilliard who's also from South Carolina filmed. She and her classmates filmed her in Juilliard, where they were all quarantined. So both of these film projects happened remotely, and yeah, that kind of really changed my path in terms of where I wanted to be and how I wanted to move forward as an artist. And also coincided with coming out as non-binary. Just in 2020, a lot of things opened up for me. Not having to sort of be on a hamster wheel all the time. I had time, so much time to look around and say, how do I feel about my life? How do I want things to be different? What's working and what's not? And by leaning into that, of course, I was trying to get jobs, trying to conform to what people wanted me to be. And by kind of leaning back and sinking my feet deeper into who I was and really discovering who I was, it attracted people who felt the same way, or people who were attracted to that. And that, I don't have any more specific words about it, but other than, leaned into what felt best and really felt genuine to me, which then led me to the ATC competition. Again, I had time to really think about 9 whole pieces to perform, and could bring so much honesty to those pieces in a way that it would have been very difficult if I was juggling that with temping, with nannying, with freelancing. And so I really got to pour my whole self into artistic practice in a way that I really never had been able to before. And yeah, ATC of course put me in touch, I guess, with Savannah Voice Festival. Got to sing at Savannah Voice Festival, meet new people, and like almost rediscover a new version of myself. It really is like pre-2020, post-2020 in terms of like my approach to work and my approach to artistic practice.
Fantastic. Thank you. When did you win the ATC? Yes.
2021. So I lived in an apartment that we had to move out of because our roommates moved out and it was too expensive. We were living in a friend's house while he was at his parents'. So the filming of those ATC videos were really over the span of like the week between Christmas and New Year's. And then the person whose house we were living in came back a few days earlier than we thought. So I am a chronic procrastinator. So I had to do it in like 3 days or something, like all nine. And we had to record all nine all at once in, our friend's house while we were also moving out because he was coming back. But my partner like couldn't move while I was recording because it would make too much noise. It was funny now, but at the time very stressful. But I was
So this was an online only ATC.
yeah.
Okay.
And filming too. I think there was something about filming myself and watching myself when everybody had to do that during the pandemic that made me relate to myself differently and kind of be more critical, but in a good way. I think I wasn't as honest of a performer before, or I thought I was doing something that other people might like. And when I had to watch myself in all of these, videos for everything, I was able to be my own my own critic and my own director and say like, oh, well, I'm my only audience. I'm the only person watching this video right now. What do I want to see? And I think that really helped.
Right. Yeah, that is again sharing my perspective of that comment. It was a huge change in my career. The moment that it was a turning point. Actually, I was in Israel, and I suddenly said, no, I want to do it the way I want to do it, and from then on, I mean, I was in charge of a concert and I was playing it, but I was a music director of it, and I was worried about is this what they think it should be done, and then at some point they said, no, stop it, just do. I felt like I knew what I wanted, and what I wanted has validation. It wasn't random, and of course I had the confidence that I knew the right information, and said, no, I want to do it the way I want it, and since then that's actually when I became a full-time conductor, and it worked. And but of course it has to come from inside, right? It's the same thing is that when you watch your video, probably you need to really like it. If you don't like it, it doesn't matter what other people say, and that is true.
Yeah.
You need to like it, right?
It's such a crazy chemistry when all of that comes together, because of course training is important, and like you can't just automatically know everything. Like you do need teachers, but then yeah, when that comes together with your intuition or something, and then with your like vision for what you want for yourself, it is, yeah. I don't know how it would have happened or when it would have happened if not for the pandemic. It's
Yeah.
wild to think that, so many terrible and wonderful things came from that time.
Right. And it's a process. You just need to arrive however you arrive, and some people may be earlier, or for whatever reason, be confident, or you need to build confidence. So it is, but
Mm-hmm.
certainly it comes from inside, with of course with outside approval, but or guidance, but it has to come from inside. And so it was a online competition, but we met. And you won the Cheryl Mills Award for the ATC, which meant that you will perform at the Savannah of Switzerland, and we met. But that was 2 summers ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was
Already.
right. Summer was 21, right?
Yeah.
Good. And how was that experience? Because that was live.
Yeah. That summer of 21 was kind of ripping the band-aid of going back to real life. And in May actually of 21, I sang for a couple concerts in Savannah, and that was my very first, I think. No, I had done like a film version of Candide in Vermont, but we were all quarantined. Everybody was, it was very, very strictly like, this is a movie set. Absolutely no one else can, it was very contained and controlled. And then shortly after that, in May or June in Savannah, I sang for hospice um, unveiling of their like new construction, and there's something else I forget, but I met everyone all at the same time. And you know, the difference between Savannah and New York in terms of pandemic like anxiety, wildly different. Everyone spent a lot of time outside, like it just wasn't the same vibe as New York. And I remember being so shell shocked, like I'm so happy to be here. I just haven't been around this many people in like a year. This is a lot. Um, but I felt so welcomed in it. I think I went straight from the plane to a party at Maria's house, and I got, you know, the vibe of Savannah Voice Festival immediately. It felt like a family. It felt like a party. I had known Chad Sanka from before I even went to grad school. We met through mutual friends when we were like early 20s, and I felt at home almost immediately. It was really wild, especially coming out of such a tense time, to be welcomed, and then to also feel so seen and feel so appreciated, you know, for the work that I put, you know, tons of thought and hours and effort into for those ATC videos. To be honored and, you know, respected as an artist for that felt incredible. And then the festival later in the summer was uh, also a whirlwind. Like it was abbreviated, but I had never been part of a festival there before, which is just a carnival of events, as you know, like so much going on all at the same time. And it was only concerts, no staged shows, but I think I was in, you know, 5 or 7 different concerts, and each of them had 2 performances. And I got to meet all of these people who had been part of the festival for maybe even a decade or more. Oh, and it just felt so. This is kind of also what I mean about pre and post 2020 version of my career. Like it just felt like I fit. It just felt there was space for me. There was mutual understanding of me, and also I understood the other artists, and it felt like home because it looks like where I grew up, but I also felt like a completely different person from when I was growing up in the South. And I don't know, really familiar, and also just tons of room to grow as well.
Wonderful, excellent, and we can say now that you're coming back
Yeah.
in summer, and as you hinted, we're coming back as Dido in Dido and Aeneas, because we're going to do Dido as one of our shows. Um, and the idea is that we're going to perform it at the lower level of the Telfair Academy, which is the sculpture garden. It has all those classical
Oh,
sculptures, and that venue is just so fitting for Dido. So tell us your relationship with the character.
I have sung Dido and Aeneas twice. Once, as I said, in grad school, and once in a concert version with period, like a full Baroque orchestra. And something about Purcell, I think, will like follow me throughout my entire career. I created a show based on Purcell music that I did with an experimental ensemble in LA earlier this year, and I feel so compelled by Purcell music. I think it's so visceral. I think he writes human emotion so well, and it's the it's fresh in my mind, so I'm going to talk a little bit about it too. The piece that I did in LA was the expostulation, the Virgin Mary's sorry, the Blessed Virgin's expostulation, and the show that we did was called Expostulations of Mary. And we blended together a lot of Baroque music, having
And explain what an expostulation
oh
is.
yeah. Yes, good question. Kind of a questioning or a interrogation, or um, yeah, a coming to terms with something. And this piece, which is just a song by Purcell is like a 8 to 10 minute, depending on how you sing it, recit essentially about Mary freaking out about being surprise pregnant and feeling alone, feeling special, feeling chosen, feeling abandoned, just wild emotional swings over the course of 10 minutes. And it kind of got my brain clicking about how someone could build a whole show about this. We added electronics and we rearranged it for strings and made kind of a whole piece about the experience of, you know, if this character were a slightly more modern figure, you know, grappling with these decisions about body autonomy and about how to go forward, what would that look like, what would that sound like, what could that mean, and I just hope to do Purcell again and again and again in my life. But so what drew me to it and what made it so easy to build out an entire show of it was how Purcell writes so simply, such depth of character. I mean, the melodies are very simple. The aria from Dido and Aeneas is just a scale, basically. Like it's, but the depth of it and the, almost because of the simplicity of it, the humanity can really show through. And I think I'm really drawn to music like that, where there is space for the creativity of the performer. It's not like you have to do it exactly this way. I also really like Baroque music for that reason. Like of course there are practices to doing Baroque music, but there's so much more room for improvisation and creativity on the part of the performer. And Dido herself, incredibly strong and also incredibly emotional, and like battles these two feelings to the very end, and rather than being disgraced is just, well, depending on how one wants to stage it, either dies or leaves, or, you know, would rather people not even see her anymore than her be disgraced in public, which is just such a fascinating and like very relevant feeling of, you know, the ways that we hide how we really feel, the ways that our public selves are different from our private selves, and how interpersonal relationships can really throw our entire plan for ourselves off course.
Going back to Purcell, and that is one of my favorite. I was telling yesterday to the cast here of Barber that is one of my top 5 operas, because it's short, it's concise, it's beautiful, and I think Purcell is actually the best English setting composer in history. The way he matches text to melody and harmony, it's just amazing, because it's very simple, but he accounts for the meaning of the words, the sound of the words, the shape of the words, the intention of the word, the feeling of the words in the music, and to me the relationship between music and text is paramount. I know that's not the only way of doing it, but to me is my favorite way of doing it, and he is the best in English to do that. And this piece is so focused and so dense that it's like it's magical, and it just you get us to a full process in all the characters, especially on Dido, in less than an hour. So we have three, almost 4 very developed characters, and that go through process, and we believe that's it. That's the funny thing. We believe that this could happen in an hour, and it's just amazing. And certainly the characters are fascinating, because like all you know, Greek-based drama, we're putting human beings in the most unthinkable situations and see how they deal with it, as a, you know, the famous catharsis. And certainly Daido is it has this conflict that, and being put in something in Aeneas, but Daido it's also being put in this situation in a way how she reacts.
Mhm.
It's fascinating, and of course musically it's very beautiful. How do how do you connect with the character that is Peter? How do you connect with the character? And let's use Dido as an example. But how do you connect with the character that you had to bring to life?
Absolutely. This is one of the few shows that I've done this many times, and it it changes with my relationship with my voice. I'm noticing, you know, the last time I sang it was maybe 5 years ago, and I have so much deeper of an understanding of my voice, my instrument, the style, the I've been steeped in personal music a lot since then too. And so connecting with the character, I mean, just for me as a musician, comes from music first and seeing how she expresses herself, because it's like a play. You go based on the words on the page, and you have a little bit more information when it's an opera. You have the words on the page and also the way that they're said, the way that they're set. And I love I love that it's kind of 0 to 60 for Dido. That is a while also maintaining an air of uh, being professional, being in charge, being regal, but is kind of always at a 10 and can go, you know, off the handle, like vocally. And then fascinatingly, when she's at her most, when the highest of emotion is when everything slows down and she sings the final aria. But it's, um, anyway, how do I connect with that? I probably start with finding the things that we have in common. I think about, you know, choices that I've made or things that I've lived through that can kind of mirror. Obviously, I have not lived a Greek tragedy, but um, just kind of trying to find ways that mirror. And when that falls short, or if that doesn't overlap, I'll think of like people in pop culture or cartoon characters, just some sort of character architecture to kind of base it off of, and then from there kind of create a new character. I relate to opera characters as definitely like me stepping into someone else's body rather than putting something on myself. Um, I, of course, am the voice of this person, but I really approach it as okay, this is a completely separate entity, and I will step into their life and become them. So I really have to do the work of kind of fleshing out that structure of a person first.
I remember, you know, in with this voice experience, and we had the opportunity to work extensively with Tito Capobianco, and he always says that what we do is fake, and that's very important that we understand that yes, our baggage is real, and we understanding of certain emotions is real, but we need to create a situation that is not real. We need to make people think that it could be real, or and with this, you know, the famous suspension on disbelief, but it's really not real. So but we need to create the fact that we are feeling it. I'm from and the best example I can say is me as a conductor. I had to create all the characters, and so if I conduct Tosca, the music I had to do for Scarpia is is different from Cavaradossi and Tosca, but it's always me,
Right.
right? So it's I mean, of course we do it together with everyone, but it's not, you know, it's we bring a lot of our personality into it, but it's not us yet. It should feel like, you know, we are creating it. We say, oh my god, we make people believe it, which is very important.
Right.
And
I like
what other characters have you created that you felt especially connected with recently?
this expostulations project. I really felt very connected with, and
What part
I
of Mary connects with you?
the in Purcell's setting, the sort of feeling completely overwhelmed with the power and responsibility of being able to reproduce, and of doing it, of not necessarily, eventually she chooses to do it obviously, but like not having the initial choice to do it. That is very relevant to, you know, what's happening in our country today and in the world. And I think it is such a nuanced subject. You know, it's not black and white. It's not good or bad. It is so complicated. Just the concept of I don't want to go too off track, but like the concept of two bodies coming together and making a life, like that's actually wild and mythical and truly magical almost. And to reduce that to a simple story is not, which is kind of the way that I had experienced like the story of Jesus and the story of Mary. It was a pretty simple, like this happened and she was fine with it, and then this happened and then Jesus died. Like, wait, that's an incredibly traumatic life if we actually talk about it. So yeah, just the conversations about sort of body autonomy have been very overwhelming to me as a person who can like carry a child, and like it was really beautifully cathartic to kind of have the space to approach that music in a really respectful way, because I do love like liturgical music that's been written about Mary, but I also didn't want to make it a simple story. It was more of a three-dimensional character, which felt good and which felt closer to me, kind of like, this is really overwhelming and I'm not sure how I feel about this day to day, but it's really wonderful to be able to explore it through music and through this person who isn't me also. You know, I think doing concerts, of course, is wonderful because it's like you and the music, but kind of losing yourself in a character is almost like, I mean, it is therapeutic, like role play, like therapy, and being able to explore parts of yourself that you probably wouldn't if you were just remaining yourself your whole life. But then, and a project that I'm doing right now is a play about singers. I haven't been in a play in a really long time. I'm very excited, but it is about singers, so there is singing involved. And it's about a voice teacher who is like toxic in several different ways, but again, it's really nuanced, and like there is overt abuse that happens with one of the students. One of the students really loves him. My character is kind of sees that he's a little bit of a just not great, but also respects him and sees that my character like needs something out of him. And it is I think anyone who's like been through the academic music industry has had some sort of teacher who you were like, did they help me or not? You know, and it is so complicated, and the way that the play is written is really beautiful. Again, to explore that nuance of like, it's not good or bad, it's not black or white. It is, everyone has a different experience of something, and I think I'm really interested in being in pieces of art that leave the audience kind of open-ended for how to feel at the end, which I feel like Dido and Aeneas does that too.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't tie things up in a bow for you, and I really love that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you feel, well, let's not tell too much about all the shows. So I hope the people that never seen it before, but but uh, but but it just it makes, as we said, it just really take you through a full journey of these characters that you feel from them, even from the witch and the sorcerers. Yeah, you have an attitude towards that person, whether it's good or bad. You are not left unmoved.
Yeah.
So it's looking forward to it. Well, thank you so much. This is, I mean, we say over an hour, so it's fun. Thank you so much for your time. It was fascinating talking to you. I look forward to our dialogue together.
Me too.
Like,
So happy to do it.
it's a great piece, and we love the idea of sharing it with Savannah.
Thanks. Me too. I can't wait.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. We'll talk with another of our voices of the festival. Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Have a good one.